Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kate and today I am going to be teaching you how to paint this easy watercolor gingerbread house. Let's get started. Alright, to start this painting, what you first need to do is sketch out your gingerbread house onto your watercolor paper. If you'd like to learn how I sketched out this gingerbread house, head over to my blog. I will have a link in the description box below, and over there I will walk you through step by step on how I drew my gingerbread house. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our size 6 round brush and we are going to start painting our gingerbread house. We're going to start with the main area of the house with a light brown color. So just take your round brush, dip it in, tap off any extra paint on your brush or extra water, and then you're just going to very carefully start painting. And right here I have circles where I'm going to have little candy. I'm just going to try to avoid painting over those circles. So that's going to be the most tedious part about this painting, is just making sure I don't go into the areas that I want to leave white and that I want to have painted other colors. And what I'm going to do, instead of painting inside my windows and the door frame, I'm going to be doing a darker color for that area. So I'm just painting this base outer area. Alright, our next step is very simple. All we're going to do now is add a darker brown mixture to the insides of our windows and the inside of our door. So I'm going to use a smaller round brush for this step, just because my windows and this area is a lot smaller than the main area of the gingerbread house. So I already have my paint color mixed off to the side. I mixed burnt umber and Payne's gray together. A little bit more burnt umber than Payne's gray. Because I wanted to still resemble the gingerbread house, I just wanted to be slightly darker. And I'm just going to fill in these little boxes. And don't worry if they're not perfectly straight or symmetrical, because you do want to remember this is a gingerbread house. So you are, in like real life, if this was real, it would be made with frosting. And it would be really hard to make everything look perfectly even, and frosting has more of like a lumpy look to it. And so we're really going for that with this painting. We wanted to have a little non-perfect look to give it that more realistic gingerbread look. So don't feel too pressured to make each little box exactly the same. Just kind of have fun with it. That a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to go down to the door. I'm just going to fill in this area right here. I'm going to leave the doorknob for later, So we will come back and we will paint that doorknob this dark brown color, but I want to wait until after we do the frosting detail on the door, just to give us less room to make it bleed into our white door. All right, and then what we're going to do with this dark paint mixture and our small detail brush, so you just want a brush that's going to come back to its tip, to a point at the tip. And we're going to use this to give shadowing. So we're just going to go along the outer edges of where we left our frosting. And we're just going to kind of create a shadow line going all the way up and then back down this side. To create white frosting, we're using a lot of negative space, so to give that extra detail that gives it more shadowing, to help it stand apart, is really going to make a difference. So now we're going to do the same thing with each of our little circle candies. Get a little bit more paint on my brush. Just gonna go back here where I noticed some mistakes. Gonna do that on this side. I'm going to take some water on my brush. I'm just going to blend out these harsh lines right along here. Some just were a little too dark, and I don't want it to look, I want it to blend in with our house. So I'm just kind of blending out a couple of the areas that I think look a little too sharp. Just like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the frosting right here and then around the door. Need to add a little bit more paint to my mixture. Go down and across the top of the door frame, back through here. Down. So just like that. I'm going to take some water on my brush. And then I am going to just blend out a little bit on either side of the door frame. Just don't want that to look too thick, too sharp. All right, and there you have it. We're going to let this dry, and then we're going to move on to adding our white frosting detail. So now what we're going to do is we are going to add a clean layer of water over our top frosting part, so over the roof, So just a clean layer of water on your brush, just to give it a nice glaze. Try not to touch the brown area, so work very slowly because you just want the white area to be wet. If we start touching the brown area, we can reactivate that paint and we can make it bleed into our white frosting. Or we can have the color we're going to add mix in with the brown and create a weird effect. Alright, so we're going to just do this first. We are going to do a very light gray, almost like just very faint. So a lot of water, not a lot of paint. And we're just going to tap in that really light gray color on the edges to give a shadow and to help us see where our white frosting is. And then the water helps us blend it because we want there to be actual white page showing through. We don't want our entire roof just to be gray. It won't end up really looking like frosting. We want it to just kind of give that shadow that the white frosting would have. And that's why we wet the whole page, so that it just kind of blends seamlessly instead of having a bunch of random gray lines everywhere. And if you notice that your white paint already dried a little as you go through, it's okay just to dip back into your clean water and blend it out. And then I'm going to take a dry brush. I'm just going to pick up some of that water in the center, just so I make sure that I have that white page coming through. With the lights that I have on for my video, it is very hard to see. Alright, so now we're going to leave that and we're going to do the same thing to our windows. So just add the clean water. And again, avoid the brown area. I'm going to just work with this one. So add just a little bit of that gray paint. And then just tap it in along the edges. Just getting a little bit more paint on my brush. Just tap it in to give it that shadow. Just like that. I'm going to take more clean water. I'm going to do the same thing to this window. Just tapping in that color again. Just like that. Alright, and then we're going to do our frosting line and the door. And we're going to do these. Do it all at the same time because in a sense it connects. And since I didn't already do my doorknob, I'm just going to paint right over that. The gray paint, just tap that in. Squiggly line, just kind of go in a random squiggly line across. Just like that for the door frame. Alright, and now while that dries, we can go ahead and we're going to add our red candy. And we'll do the green when the red dries. So we're going to mix together a very dark mixture of red paint any extra water. And then using the tip of the brush, we're just going to fill in those circles. And I'm going to go every other. And the reason we're going to wait for the green is because they are going to touch just a little bit, and I don't want any of the green and red to bleed into each other. That'll just give us a very weird grayish color that comes out of that. So we're going to leave that. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. Right, just like that. And then I'm going to go back over here and just add a little bit more red to the ones that I think need it. Just like that. Now what we're going to do for this step is just paint in the other circles, and we're going to be using a dark green. So take your round brush again, and then just fill up each of these little circles. I chose to do red and green for Christmas colors, but you could choose whatever color combination you want. You can get as creative as you want with your color combinations. I always like practicing my color combinations out on a separate sheet of paper first, like a scrap sheet of watercolor paper that I don't care about, just because it's amazing what colors look terrible together. And this way, I'm not being too careful if the colors touch. I'll probably go back in with a second coat of green because it looks like it's gonna dry pretty light. But I want them to touch too, just because for a real gingerbread house, there wouldn't be large gaps. They'd be stacked on top of each other. There we go. All right, and then once it dries, you can decide if you want to add a second coat of green on top or if it looks dark enough to you. So once it dries, we will come back and add a light background to our gingerbread house. All right, before this painting is finished and I completely forget, I am very quickly going to paint in our tiny little doorknob. So I'm going back into that dark brown mixture that we used before for the windows and the door, and I am just going to add that little dot to give our door its doorknob. All right, so the other step that we're going to be doing is we are going to add a light sky, and we are going to add a little path and just some foreground to our painting. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take some clean water on our brush, And we are just going to apply that very randomly around, around our gingerbread house. I'm not going for any perfect lines. I just want this to be a very loose light background to give the appearance of a light blue sky. So I'm just kind of randomly going in. I don't really want to see any sharp lines, so that's why I'm doing the wet on wet technique. I am being careful not to touch my gingerbread house with my clear water, my clean water, because I don't want to reactivate it or have any weird bleeds happen. So I'm just going down to the foot, a little bit before the very bottom of the gingerbread house. And I'm going to take a light blue paint color, and I'm just going to start bringing that in all around the gingerbread house. Just going to kind of carry that through the wet area that we just applied. Just a little bit more pigment here on the side. Here as well. I'm going to dab my brush off, clean it off, and then I'm going to go above it and I'm going to blend that all out, just so there again is no harsh line between the blue and the white page. Just like that. You can make this as dark as you like, but I really do like a light background so our picture really stays in the forefront. And then what we're going to do, we're going to go into that gray paint that we used before. Dab off any extra, and we are going to go on either side, just barely around, like that. And then I'm going to blend that gray paint, leaving white space. I purposefully want there to be white space left. Because again, I want this to have the appearance of snow. I don't want it to just seem like a gray ground. And I'm going to do a little bit more darker pigment right at the base, just for that natural shadow. And I'm going to take some clean water. Just going to blend this a little bit more. And then I'm doing just clean water down that middle path. I'm going to go into my brown paint mixture and really dilute it a little bit. And then I'm just going to add a little brown path. And your path is going to get wider as it gets toward you. It'll also get darker, so I'm going to add a little bit more pigment to my brown mixture. That turned out really dark, so I'm just going to blend that out into the path. And then I'm just going to work that back. Just like that. with it till it's at your liking. And there you have a watercolor gingerbread house.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching my video today. I hope you found it helpful. If you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. If you'd like any extra detail on this tutorial, head over to my blog, Reflecting Creation. I'll have a link in the description box below. Bye!